Hello legends. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build this AI SMS assistant in n8n. We're going to be using Twilio for the inbound and outbound of our SMS. We'll be building an AI agent that uses GPT 4.1 as the brain. We've got Postgres for memory, so we can actually remember the entire conversation we have with individual users. And for our RAG, we're just using the Perplexity API and plugging it directly into our website and our support page. So we have the latest up-to-date information about our products and services, any other technical information we need to know as well. And the cool thing about this system is that it will batch messages for us, because when you're SMSing or messaging on like social media chats like Facebook and Instagram, typically you actually message multiple times and it's meant to represent just one single message. So you just need one response. And instead of us, each time a message comes in, triggering an operation and then responding to that message individually. So like this hi would get a hi, how can I help? How much is the hot tap will get a price. Then the one with the pump would actually be more context. So it's actually a different model of the hot tap, which is a totally different price. And then thanks might get no worries, let me know how I can help. But over here, since we're batching it, we're just getting one context aware, complete and accurate response to the customer. And that's taken care of using these 4 nodes up the top. So as soon as a message comes in, we actually hold it and we wait for a period of about 5-10 seconds. And that should actually get all the rest of the messages into a batch. After the 5-10 seconds, we then progress through, collect all the messages, and then put them into our AI agent for the response. And in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how to set up this entire thing from scratch. We'll be starting from a blank canvas, but let me quickly just test the workflow and show you how it works. So with the workflow in test mode, I'm going to be sending in, hi, what products does Julka sell? Let's hit send. And this actually goes to the Twilio number first. And then in Twilio, we've configured the settings to actually send that message to this webhook. And now we're actually taking that message, adding it to a Google Sheets. If I sent more messages right now, they'd actually be added as a batch. But as you can see here, the process went through. We collect the messages back from the Google Sheet. And now we go into our SMS agent. For this question, what products does Julka sell? We actually use the, like I said before, the Perplexity API on our own website. And the response is, Julka sells the hot tap portable water heater, ensuite double room shower tent, gotta go, and a bunch of different accessories. And you can click here to learn more. And this is my e-commerce store. This is julka.com. And that's what we have here. So we've got a bunch of different products, but we have the hot tap shower. We've got the gotta go toilet, the shower tents, and a bunch of different stuff. So this is actually the easiest way I find to do RAG, just because you don't have to have a third-party database somewhere that you have to manually keep updated all the time. Most likely your website and your support pages are going to be up to date 24/7, because this is like the key source of truth for your customers. And now a very quick test just to be sure that we actually have memory in this conversation. So what was my last question? Let's hit send. And thanks to this Postgres memory node, we actually have an offsite storage. So we're using Supabase to store all the messages. And the cool thing is that each message is actually stored by the unique phone number of the user. We're not using any other random variable. It's literally whatever the phone number is messaging us, that's the storage key in our Supabase table. So, hi, what products does Julka sell? That's the exact same question we had before. So this agent has memory, this agent has RAG. You can trigger this for inbound customer support, or you can trigger this for outbound sales or appointment reminders, or pretty much any other workflow that you have in mind. All right, so starting in a brand new canvas, the first thing we need to do is set up a webhook. So this webhook is going to be used to receive the message that's coming in from Twilio. And we've got a test and a production URL over here. For testing, I'm going to use the test URL just so I can actually see the nodes execute and get the data for each execution. So I'm going to copy this. So now over in Twilio, I've got to adjust the settings for my phone number to actually point all inbound messages across to n8n. So to do that, I'm just going to go to my region, choose phone numbers, manage, and active numbers. So I'm going to be using this number for testing. This is Bart testing. Let's click it open. Awesome. Now, since I'm using a US number, I actually had to complete the A2P registration. Without the A2P registration, you won't be able to send or receive SMSs using Twilio. So you can just follow the steps to do this. Once that's done, in this settings page, you actually have 2 different configurations you can do. One for voice configuration and then one for messaging configuration. So the voice configuration just means that whenever you call this phone number, you can set a webhook that's going to point that phone number or that phone call across to a different endpoint. So let's say you had an AI caller using Retail or 11 Labs, you would just put the endpoint to that caller over here. And then whenever someone calls this phone number, they're going to speak to your AI agent. In our case, we're going to go to the very bottom. We want the messaging configuration. And then we want to change this URL over here. This just means that every new inbound message is going to be pushed across to this URL. So back in n8n, I'm going to grab this URL from here. Then I'm going to backspace this old URL, paste the new one in. And we can see over here, we're setting it as a post request. So back in n8n, let's just change this to post. And now I just got to hit save on configuration. And now I can actually test this webhook. So I'm going to go test, listen for event, open up my messaging app and just say hi there. And now this is going to go across to that Twilio number. But since we pointed Twilio to this webhook, we're going to receive the message in here. So if I just look at the data that we received, Firstly, it was a success because we actually fired some information after here. But here we have that message that I just sent in. So the body of the message is hi there. And then we have the to phone number, which is that Twilio phone number we had. And then we have the from phone number, which is in my case, the customer's phone number. Now, the next thing we want to do is actually figure out that batching function. So we want to go ahead and send every new message that comes in initially into a temporary holding table within Google Sheets. So I'm going to go Google Sheets. And this just means that as we get this batch of messages, they're typically sent within, a 10, 20 second window. On some of my automations, sometimes because customers might take a little bit longer to kind of batch messages together, I might have this timer open for like a minute. So for a minute period, I'm actually just batching all the messages that come in. And we just need to select append row and sheets. I've got my AI SMS Google Sheet selected. And now the tab I'm going to be using is holding. So this is how that sheet is going to look. I've got a date column, which I'm not actually using right now. I've got a from number, and then I've got a message. So let's say, for example, I was to get a message from number 1, 2, 3, 4, and there was 3 separate messages sent across a 5 or 10 second window. I would log each of those messages directly like this. So hi there, how are you, thanks. And the unique key for each of these is just the from phone number. So now to set that up in my sheet, really what I want to be doing is pulling in the from number and then the message. So let's scroll down and find the message, which is this body variable here. So message is hi there. And then my from number is here. So now if I just test this step, there we go. It was successfully added. So let's check the Google Sheet. And there we go. It was added into our Google Sheet over here. So we have the from number and then we have the hi there. Now there's actually one thing wrong with how we added this number, and that is that it's not in the E164 format. So whenever we're using Twilio or any API services for sending and receiving messages and calls, we actually have to have the phone number in this E164 format. And for our case, we actually don't have that plus listed in that Google Sheet. It actually should be right there. But then looking at the Google Sheet setting, we actually have the plus because it came from Twilio with the plus, but it's not being transferred across. So all we need to do is just get a single quotation mark, put it there. There we go. So now when we add it with the single quotation mark, it's going to be added to the sheet, and it's actually going to keep the plus there. This is important because later on when we're taking that phone number and sending the message back to the user, we need to have this plus listed here in order for it to be formatted correctly for the API. So let's test it again. Let's go test step. All right, it was added. Awesome. And it was added perfectly with the plus listed as well. Now, the next thing we want to do is get a wait node. So this wait node is going to be what we're using to wait 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds to actually collect all the messages. So for testing, I probably would only go 5 seconds because really we just want to see if we send multiple messages within a 5-second window, is the actual process of adding them to Google Sheets working? So 5 seconds is enough for me. So let's test that out. I'm going to go across to this webhook. I'm going to flick over to production. I'm going to copy this. So I'm actually going to test in production mode right now, mainly because if I hit test workflow, as soon as I send one message, then that's going to take the workflow out of testing, and I'm not going to be able to send another message into the system. But if I actually flick this across to active, then I'm going to be able to send multiple messages at one time and then see them being added to the Google Sheet in real time. So now with this active, let's go back into Twilio and just update this URL into the production URL. So let's paste this into here and hit save configuration. And now this is going to be ready to receive multiple messages at one time. Awesome, so let's test this out. I'm just going to send a bunch of quick messages. Hi there, how are you? They're going to go across to Twilio first, then it's going to be pointing to our production n8n webhook, and then we're basically adding to the Google Sheet here. So this initial function is working. So now let's say we've waited for 5-10 seconds and we've collected a batch of multiple messages. Now what we want to do is actually go back into Google Sheet and then pull out that entire batch of messages. So to do that, I'm just going to go copy this, paste it into here. It already has the configuration set for the worksheet that I need. And I'm going to change this to get rows. So now for get rows, I actually need to get the rows that are associated to that phone number that was messaging. So I'm going to add a filter, and I'm going to go to column and from number. And now I actually need to send some test information into here because I'm going to go back to this webhook and actually pull out that from number that we initially received the message from. So there is a little bit of jumping around, but I'm going to go back to this webhook over here, choose the test webhook, then back in Twilio, just reinstall that test webhook and hit save configuration. Let's listen out for a test event and then send a new message. Awesome, so we received the message, we've added it into Google Sheet, and now we actually just have to add it into our filter over here. So let's open up this Google Sheet, go back into the filter, and then we want to go back to the webhook. That's the phone number we want to be using. So this from phone number, we're going to paste it into here. So now if I actually just hit test step, we're going to be returning all these messages. So the initial 2 ones that I sent before, and then this third one from this test, because they all have that same phone number. So now let's just hit test, and there we go. We got row number 2, row number 3, row number 4, and we got the hi there, how are you, and then hi there again. So now at this stage, since we have all the messages returned to us, we actually want to turn all those separate messages into one string that we can then add into the AI agent. So this data set is actually an array of objects. So each of these between these squiggly brackets is actually just one object. So it contains the row number, the date, the from number, and the message. So we want to take each of these packets of information and then just append this value, the message value, to each of these separate message values as a string. So we're going to get a code node to do that for us. Okay, so let's open up and get a code node. Awesome. And now what I want to do is actually go across to ChatGPT and just tell it and say, hey, this is the information that we have from the previous Google Sheets node. I need to write a code node with an n8n that's going to take that information and then just combine all these message variables into one string and then output that as a variable that I can use. So I'm going to go ahead and copy by pressing this button here. I'm going to copy this entire data set. So this is what I'm sending to ChatGPT. I'm just saying that, hey, I am within n8n and I need a code node for n8n. I'm doing this because when you're coding in JavaScript or Python, in an unrestricted environment like Cursor or Replit, there's a bunch of different libraries that you can use when you're coding to just simplify the amount of code that you need. Within n8n, we cannot use those libraries, which means we have to use like raw basic JavaScript. So just by prefacing saying, hey, I'm within n8n, I've got some restrictions, I can't use libraries, blah, blah, blah. Just write me a code node that'll be suitable for n8n. Anyway, so here I am saying, write me a code node that's going to take all the messages from the data set that I gave you and put them into one variable. By the way, this is a dynamic data set. It might have one message, it might have 5, it might have 10. So the actual code needs to be dynamic. And then over here, I'm just pasting in the data set that I got directly from n8n. So let's hit send and just see what code we get back out of this. All right, wicked. Let's copy this and back in n8n, let's paste it into here and just see if this works. So we're going to hit test step, undefined is not valid JSON in line 2. So it seems like there was an error over here. Let's paste this into ChatGPT, see if it can fix itself. All right, the updated code. Let's paste it into here and test step. Okay, awesome. So hi there, how are you? Hi there. So I actually do a variation for this for my production-ready SMS systems. Sometimes what you might want to do is maybe get it to return the messages in markdown format, like message 1, hi there, message 2, how are you, message 3, hi there. Or you can use like a comma between each message. But yeah, you might find that you do want to have some way of just distinguishing between messages. I'm going to leave that for you to decide. But yeah, for now, this is going to be working for us because now we just have literally one string that we can import into the AI agent. So now before we actually go and input this message into the AI agent to generate a response, we actually have to come back into this Google Sheet and just clean it up because this is just like a temporary storage for messages while we're batching. We don't actually want to leave them here because if we just leave them here and then 5 minutes later, the person replies again and they reply again, we're going to have it's going to be very, very dirty and the context of the message is not going to be clean. So we essentially want to wipe these out. So to wipe that out, we're just going to duplicate this Google Sheets node, paste it over here. Once again, it's already plugged into the Google Sheet that we need. Let's open it up. And now for the operation, we're going to go to delete rows or columns. So for our settings over here, we've got to delete rows, start number row, and then the number of rows to delete. So what that means is that we have to find out what's the starting row, which is 2, for example, and how many rows we need to delete. It's 1, 2, and 3. So in order for us to get that information and put it into here, so the start row number and then number of rows to delete, we can actually go back into this code node. And if I open this up, we can see that we actually have this information here already. Which row number is it, which row number is it, and which row number is it? So technically we can just go back to ChatGPT and say now, output 2 more variables. We need one variable that's the start row number, and then one variable that just tells us how many rows we would need to delete. So now I'm just saying, please update the code to also output the start row number and then the number of rows. This is probably very, very bad instructions. Let's see if we can just do it though. Okay, so we've got a code over here. Let's copy that. And now let's paste it into here, hit test step. And we've got, okay, so we got the original message. Hi there, how are you doing? Start row number is 2 and number of rows is 3. Let's confirm that start row number is 2 and number of rows is 1, 2, and 3. All right, so that's perfect. Now in our Google Sheets delete function, we need to pull in the start row dynamically from this code node. And then the number of rows, let's backspace that and put it into here as well. So now if I just test this step, we should actually see, okay, it's already deleted it before we can actually come back and test it. So yeah, those 3 messages were here. I tested that step and it deleted the messages for us. So now this is blank, it's ready. And technically, how you want this sheet to look is as often as possible blank, aside from when you're just batching messages. So that's all good. We have a success, which means it was deleted. And now we can actually go around and plug in the variable or the single message variable from the code node directly into our AI agent. So let's go ahead and build an AI agent. For this step, you guys will have your own requirement for what you want the agent to do. I'm just going to build out what we had before, just a very basic agent that can do question and answers based on company information. So the first thing I want to set is just the source prompt. This is just saying like, all right, what information do you want to input as the user info? So we want to input the string of messages here. So I'm going to go across to Google Sheets over here and just click on code node and then input this message variable. So now this AI agent is going to receive this message from the user. Hi there, how are you? Hi there. All right, let's get out of this. Let's set up some other stuff that we need. So the chat model, I'm just going to be using OpenAI. I'm going to go for GPT 4.1. Now I'm going to use 4.1 for two reasons. One, it's the best model for following instructions, which is actually what I like to do when I'm doing customer communication. But also I'm going to be using 4.1 because let's say I've got a really long conversation with the customer, like someone's just messaging me a lot about, I don't know, a sophisticated problem or a product or whatever. I've got a really long context window. I've got 1 million tokens in the 4.1 API, which means that when I'm actually building out my memory variable over here using the Superbase database, whenever I get a message from the user, I can actually take in whatever size of, like they're never going to meet 1 million tokens. So this just gives me some security there. It probably is a little bit overkill, but yeah, 4.1 is actually very good at following instructions, and I want that as well. So for memory, I'm going to be using Postgres chat memory. Now I'm going to be linking a video about how to set this up in the description of this video, just to make this video, this current one, fly through a little bit faster. But what we're doing here is we actually need a session ID key. So the session ID it's just a unique identifier that denotes who does this message belong to. So for us, the message belongs to the sender, and that sender, the unique ID for that sender is just their phone number. So we're going to go to session ID and we're going to go define below. And now I'm going to go back down to my initial webhook, scroll down and take the from number, which is here. And now I'm using the from number as the key for our chat messages. It's just red right now because I haven't executed this to run with the agent, but that's going to be working for us. So now we have the 4.1 brain plugged in. We have the memory connected as well. And that memory is going to be scraping together every single message we get from the user, as well as every single update or every single message that the AI is going to be sending back to us, back to the user, sorry. All right, awesome. So then the final thing we want to do is give our agent some product and service information. So we're going to be using a HTTP request tool. So this is just like making an API call, and we're placing this API call directly to our website. And we're going to be using the Perplexity API to do that for us. Okay, so over in the Perplexity API documentation, I'm going to go across to API reference. And over here, I have the API call we're going to be making. So I'm just going to be copying this API call. But before I do that, I just want to speak about how this is going to work for us. So when we're sending the actual API call, we're able to send a message, like a dynamic question into the API, which is going to be generated by the AI agent based on whatever the SMS message is that's coming in. And this AI agent is going to dynamically insert into this Perplexity web search API that specific question. So that's what we can do over here. We can actually dynamically insert it. But now the next thing we want to do is actually scroll down, and we've got a bunch of different parameters we can set when we're actually building this API call. And one of those parameters is search domain filter. Search domain filter is going to give us the ability to restrict the web searches only to the websites that we want. So for example, in my case, I've got my sales website, which is the front end website where anyone can come in, purchase a product, and it has all the products, all the pricing, some high level specs. But I also have like a back end website, which is for my customer support. So this has like all the proper detailed specs, user guides, troubleshooting information about warranty, purchasing, everything that that a customer might need to know. So then using the search domain filter, I can literally have it plugged into my sales website, into my support website, and have all the information that I would need to give to a customer. So to build this out, we're in the curl settings. I'm just going to zoom back in. We've got curl selected. And if you've updated your n8n to the latest version, you can actually just copy this entire curl request as it is and go back to the n8n API call and just go import curl. We paste it into here, we hit import, and it's going to get all the settings that we need for this API call to work. It's going to just plug them all in. So we've got the post method, we've got the URL for the endpoint, we've got headers here. So our authorization header, we're going to get the API key in just a second. And then we actually have the body of the JSON that we're sending. This is how we're going to be configuring our API call. But what I want to do is actually copy this and go across to ChatGPT. And then I'm saying I want to add search domain filtering. I've pasted in the explanation from the API documents. And then over here, I want to add the search domain filter for julka.com and then support.julka.com as well. So let's hit enter. And we're going to get the body returned to us with that search domain filter parameter actually installed. We can just copy and paste it directly back. So here's the body return for us. We have model, messages, and then search domain filter for both of those sites. So awesome, this is ready for us to use. So let's go ahead and paste it into here. Now, the only thing is that now we actually need some way for the AI agent to dynamically insert the question. Because if we just hit this API call, we have the system role, which is be precise and concise, cool. But then we have the content, which is what question we're asking the internet. And it says how many stars are in the galaxy. What we really want to do is actually just take this out, make it a dynamic variable, and call this web search question, close this off, and whoops, there should be underscore. And now when we actually make this API call, the AI assistant is going to be able to basically replace this with the question. But to make this work, we have to copy this. Let's backspace it. Let's click this button over here. Let the model define a parameter. And right underneath, we actually have this add a description. And in the description, I'm just pasting in that body of the API call. So this way, I actually have just instructions for the model to know that, okay, this is the body that we're using. You're dynamically replacing web search question over here with whatever question it is that you decide, since we're using the define by model. So now the final thing we need to set up here is the API token. So over in my perplexity settings, I'm going to go to API keys, and I've already got a key over here generated. If you don't, you just click create key. So let's just copy this, and back in n8n, let's backspace that. Let's paste it into here, and now this is ready to go. All right, done. So at this stage, I want to just test the workflow to make sure that everything works start to finish. Now, I still do need to put a Twilio like send message node over here, but I just don't want to send the message just yet. Let's actually test this out. So I'm just going to say hi there. So the message will come in. We've got the test webhook still being used. So the message comes in. We've added to the Google Sheet. We're waiting for 5 seconds or 10 seconds, actually. We've deleted it from the Google Sheet. We've taken all the messages, turned them into one variable. We plugged it into the AI agent. So now we have the response from the agent. If I double click this, hello, how can I assist you today? So that's actually perfect. One thing we didn't do before is actually add a system message. And this is just going to define what kind of response we want out. So we want to make sure that we know this is an AI SMS assistant, and then what tool calls that we have available. So we're going to be using this prompt. It's very, very basic. You guys should definitely change it around depending on what your use case is, but you're a helpful SMS assistant for Julka.com. Always use the web search tool for questions, and then keep your responses short and sweet to a maximum of 160 characters. So in Twilio, if you've got more than 160 characters, it's going to take that message and then chunk it down and send it as 2 messages. I don't like that. I want to send it as 1 message, so just keep it below 160 characters. And now we just need to do one more thing and just change that tool name over here to be called web search, so it makes sense in the instructions as well. So I'm just going to copy this, click on tool down here, and now we're in our tool settings, go up to HTTP request, change this to web search, and now let's just give it an accurate description of what this tool is. Awesome, so use this tool to search for questions about Julka. Done. And now the final thing we want to do is actually configure our Twilio node. So the Twilio node is going to be what we're sending messages with. So let's go to Twilio and then choose send an SMS. So I've already got some credentials configured over here, but I'm just going to show you how to add them from scratch. So to create our new credentials, we just need to get the account SID and the auth token from Twilio. To do that, let's go into the account dashboard, and then scrolling down, we've got the account SID and the auth token. So let's copy the SID, paste it into here, copy the token, paste it into here. And I'm just going to rename this to -test and hit save. Awesome, that was successfully added. So let's get back out of here. So now let's configure the rest of the settings. So the from number is actually going to be the number that we messaged, so the Twilio number that we had. You can just go into the webhook, which is that first node that received the message. And this is that phone number that we're going to be sending from. I would just actually hard code it into here. We don't need to use it as a variable because it's always going to be from the same phone number as an outbound. And the to number is going to be dynamic. So we just need to pull this in from, where is the from number? Over here, there we go. Paste the from number into here. And now the message, let's go back to the AI agent and paste this into here. And now if I just go test step and open up my messaging, we should see the response. There we go. Hi, how can I help you with your Julka products or info today? All right, so now let's test out that everything is plugged in and working well. Let's go test workflow. And now let's send the message, hi there. So we'll get the message into here. Cool, it's adding to the Google Sheet. We're going to wait 5 or 10 seconds. We then get the message back from the Google Sheet, turn it into one variable, delete the messages from the Google Sheet. And now let's see if the AI agent is configured correctly. Also, now our response is, hi, how can I assist you today? So that worked perfectly well. I actually now want to test that the web search works as well. So let's go test workflow. And let's say, what products does Julka sell? So once again, into the Google Sheet, we're waiting 5-10 seconds. All right, nice. Now let's see if we hit the web search. Okay, so it seems to be working. It seems like it returned some information back for us. And Julka sells the hot tap portable water heaters, the gotta-go toilet, and everything like that. Okay, guys, so that actually works perfectly. From here, I would actually just go in and change this up and say, hey, always include the URL in your response. I think that's pretty cool, just to have the URL, like click through here and buy the hot tap if you want. So that's really how I would improve the system. But yeah, guys, now you have a fully working production-ready AI SMS agent that can handle your inbound SMSs. If you stuck around to the very end of the video, I appreciate you watching to now. Please hit like, please drop a comment, please subscribe. Yeah, help me get some more engagement on this video to keep pushing it out to more people. Thank you very much, guys, and enjoy your SMS agent.